On this episode of the Ministry of Motion Pictures podcast,
when we look at a script, we want to make sure that it's rock solid. You know, that this is going to be something that's going to connect with the Christian audiences or be seeker-friendly. We're the gatekeepers for that. And so that's one of the things we do at WTA. We have a responsibility that content and that message is clear.
This is episode 16.
We're on a mission from God.
Looking back at the previous 15 episodes, I'm amazed at the caliber of guests who have so generously given to me of their time and even suffered through some technical difficulties, yet all have been very gracious and made significant contributions to this podcasting effort. The experience has been far better than I could have anticipated, and I hope you're finding these podcasts to be as valuable as I do. My guest in this episode is Brian Mitchell, the Chief Operating Officer of the WTA Group, formerly known as Working Title Agency. Brian brings many years of experience developing and working to bring Christian films into the market for a gospel purpose, and he has a lot of valuable wisdom and insight to offer. WTA Group is in the process of expanding its resources and reach, and Brian will share the exciting things that God is doing within their company. Why don't you tell us a little bit about WTA Group and what you guys do down there?
Absolutely. All right. WTA Group started as Working Title Agency. So the reason why we have that name is because we actually do that. We like to work from the working title stage of the film or the book project. We actually work with book publishers and our agents for authors and writers, but also with filmmakers. And, we love to see the whole process from the creation, from all the, working with the talent on the themes and the stories, all the way to fruition of a theatrical release, and then downstream, everything else that happens. Home entertainment, it's the Netflix, streaming to pay TV to all the other avenues of consumers getting a chance to watch these films. So that is what we do. We've been doing it for a little over 10 years, and we have grown immensely, especially over the last 5 or 6 years, as we built our team, and we've started to have much better relationships with studio partners on the film side to bring some great movies to the screen with a message of Christ for audiences that really connect on a faith level, And that might be in a small way where it is a story that has a faith element to it, or it's really something much more pointed and directly for the church with a message about whether it's prayer or identity in Christ. And that's the kind of thing we do with the Kendrick Brothers. So we're working with them closely on the movie that's coming up, Overcomer, that's in theaters on August 23rd.
Right. So what is your relationship to other studios like Sony Affirm? Do you partner with them?
Yeah, we sure do, in different ways. So Sony Affirm would be one great partner we work with. We also work with Universal Studios. We've done a few things, or developing things with Lionsgate. We have distributor partners like Roadside Attractions that has a stake from Lionsgate. And what we typically do in those relationships are bringing content to them and then also sharing where it's possible in the funding of the film. So that could be in the production of the film, but it also could be in the P&A,
right,
which is an old term for prints and advertising.
Right.
That's the marketing of the film. So there's so many different ways that can happen, and we work with a variety of studios in different ways and different projects.
So how do you get your projects? Do they come to you from filmmakers or from publishers or other studios, or is it a mix?
Probably not other studios, but probably more often it's because we've got relationships with writers, we've got screenplays that we can bring to the table, and we've got a number of those, for example, right now with Universal that we're talking through where we could partner in the production and the P&A in it. So those could be filmmakers, but also screenplay writers. And one of the things that we do is with all of our relationships, we put all those pieces together. All the, putting a production team together, putting the directors, the executive producers that can get behind it, assisting with the production, and a part of that is the marketing during the production time. So we get in there early on and set visits and early promotion and awareness of the film. So there's so many different avenues of what we do, but quite often it's one of the things that we say is we help creatives bring their vision to the marketplace. Yeah. And that can happen in so many different ways. But our goal is to get that message out. And everything that we do, there is a component that is a message that leads people to a relationship with Christ. But that could be in a variety of different ways that comes across in a film.
So what are some of the other films that you've worked on?
So we have worked over the years, I mentioned the Kendrick Brothers, so probably the earliest project that we've worked on together was Fireproof. And actually, WTA started out really getting its feet wet on the book publishing side. So there was a book related to the film Fireproof called The Love Dare. Yeah. And we brought that to Lifeway and Broadman and Holman, and that book has sold in excess of 7 million copies.
Oh my gosh.
So that is really where we work with the filmmakers, in this case the Kendrick Brothers, and help them on the publishing side, but it ultimately led to having a much bigger relationship with them on both the filmmaking and the film marketing side. So even today, as I mentioned, we're working with them, and we've got a component of the Overcomer movie release marketing, but we also represent them in all of their book publishing. So we've got partners in both Tyndale as well as Broadman and Holman and Lifeway on the curriculum. So it's a pretty massive undertaking just on the publishing side. So the Kendricks would be, one of our most important clients and long-term clients, but, we have also worked with the Irwin brothers on nearly all of their films, including Woodlawn and Mom's Night Out, and last year's I Can Only Imagine.
Yeah, right.
And helped lead some of the marketing components around that campaign. We've also worked with Devon Franklin, on his films with both Sony and Fox. Heaven is for Real, right. Miracles from Heaven, and then just a few months back here, Breakthrough from Devon Franklin.
Right.
And those are just a few, but we have many, many relationships, both on the filmmaker and studio side.
So do you see that the changes in streaming and distribution are as a positive thing, or is it a struggle?
So I assume you're talking about the home entertainment side of what happens after the theatrical release.
Okay, so you drill down to the theatrical release projects first.
Well, absolutely. And then the next window after theatrical release typically is still the physical DVD, Blu-ray, and SVOD platforms. And sometimes that's pay TV instead of streaming. It just depends on where the best opportunity is.
Oh, I see. So the theatrical market is still a viable market for you?
Absolutely. Okay. Right. Great. Lots of opportunity ahead. I think what we're all experiencing is there's been an explosion in the growth of faith-based audience films. By the way, we market films to audiences that are Christians. We kind of like to stay away from the term Christian film. The film's not Christian.
Right.
audience who we feel is right for the content, and in many cases, it's a chance for them to bring others that are seeking to the theater. And there's been, as you've probably seen, a pretty major uptick in the content that's available theatrically. But that can be very small event cinema to larger theatrical runs. And I think there's still a lot of opportunity there. It's not an untapped audience, but it's certainly not capped out because of the fact that there's a huge percentage of the population that is professing Christian, and not every film is suited for them, just like it would in the general marketplace.
Right.
So there's still a lot of opportunity there. I think there's a little bit of fatigue on the marketing front of getting the gatekeepers involved in awareness and promotion of those films. So that's probably where some of the challenge lies with us right now.
So what's going on distribution-wise? Is it a positive thing now?
No, I think studios are still looking for theatrical release opportunities to reach the faith audience. Some have done much more. As you already know, Sony with Affirm Films has embraced it the longest, and they've really learned what works, what doesn't work. Now you're seeing Lionsgate that's come to the table with the Irwin Brothers and Kingdom Studios that they just launched.
Right.
And their first film is I Still Believe, that's coming out next March through Lionsgate. And they're going to have a slate of additional films over the next several years. Universal, we work with them on a number of fronts. We just released last year the follow-up to the movie Unbroken.
Right.
It was Unbroken Path to Redemption. While it wasn't a huge theatrical release, the home entertainment piece, the downstream, which is what you're asking about, Netflix, pay TV, foreign rights that are being exploited by Universal Studios, is where all the difference is made.
Yeah.
There's so much more opportunity to reach more people, but also to recover and get into profitability for the film itself. So I think you're going to see more come from the Universal camp as well.
So you see a big upswing in the amount of faith-based films that are coming out now.
Well, it actually does have a bit of ebb and flow. So we've gone through some periods where we've had a number of films on top of each other. And really, some of the key times are about right now. We're talking in August and going into September, when that's been a great window for faith films before it gets too flooded into the fall season by all the major theatrical releases.
Right.
And the other window is really leading into Easter. So that March and April window has been very, very strong for faith-based films. So you tend to see them stacked up on top of each other during those windows. But I think this fall we're in a little bit of a lull there, and the Kendrick's film Overcomingrs got a pretty wide open path with not a whole lot of competition for other films in the market.
Yeah, I know they've been marketing that thing for almost a year now, it seems like.
They've really done a great job with that. They know their audience. They know the church and what their need is, or I should say needs, because their films have all been based on a felt need that really touches the church. And that could be fatherhood, marriage, prayer, and now identity in Christ. And they know how to meet that church-going, movie-going audience, their needs very, very well.
Yeah, it's been exciting to see them rise and grow and do what they're doing.
Yeah, we love working with those guys.
So filmmakers will come to you and pitch you ideas, or screenwriters send you scripts directly, or do they go through agents?
Yeah, that can happen. We don't really look for solicited scripts. I would say a large majority of that comes from our relationships that we already have in place with existing filmmakers, with existing writers who we've had past experiences with, or relationships, common, relationships that they bring to the table. So it's more often that. I think you asked earlier, occasionally there's an opportunity where there could be a best-selling book work with the publisher on their rights to bring that book to the big screen. And really, that's kind of the case of what happened with Unbroken, which was Laura Hillebrand's book, made the first film. But in her book, she had such an incredible, 5 or 6 chapters about Louis Zamperini's life after the war and his time with Billy Graham, his conversion experience, that we were able to bring that to the screen, and it was never seen before. So it was a part of the story that, unless you read the book, you never got to experience in the movie theater.
Right.
So we do more and more of those kind of things. And I think a great opportunity ahead as we're in discussion, I don't know if you know Francine Rivers' book, Redeeming Love. So there's some opportunities there that we're in early discussions on with some partners to bring that incredible story and bestseller to the screen in the next year or two.
What kind of things would you like to see that maybe you're not seeing in terms of content?
Content? Well, that's a great question. So, and here's why. One of the things that we would like to see more of is to be able to tell stories, whether they're based on, true stories, real life, or stories that we can develop and bring to the screen, is stories that are relatable at a high quality level, but don't necessarily have to be so pointed on the Christian message. And when I say that, I mean the ability to reach an even wider audience and possibly even open up the door for them to visit the Bible, to get a deeper relationship with Christ, by telling relatable stories that are not as pointed on the message, but lead them to Christ, is what we would like to do. Okay. And when the comparison, I would say, is the Kendricks are a great example where they reached the church. They reached the church audience, the church-going audience that loves the message and content, and they love being reminded. For example, you know what, my prayer life is not great. This film was incredible for me to remember how important that is and to increase prayer as a part of my daily life. So that's a very pointed message. There are other ways of telling stories that can show how your faith is an incredible part of your life story told in a film that can open up or solve some of the curiosity of what can improve their life and a stronger relationship with Christ. And I think that that's where we can bring more people to theater. The people that are Christians can bring their friends, feel comfortable about not only the story but the quality of the film that we strive to do even more of, is to increase that quality of film, both the acting and the actual production. And it's something to not be ashamed of.
Right.
And we strive for that. That's a big part of what we want to do as we move forward.
Oh, that's great. I interviewed theologian Kevin Van Hooser, who's written a lot about the drama of doctrine and about how Christian theology is designed not for academia but to be put on display in the lives of its people and the life of the church. And I think some of the things that he said in his interview, I think was really helpful for filmmakers in that we should be thinking about stories that aren't necessarily preaching a message, but they're demonstrating a life.
That's right.
And using drama and all those things to help us do that, but we're coming at it from an angle of putting theology, God's truth on display.
Yeah, that's absolutely correct. And what is that? Francis of Assisi? Show them.
Yeah.
And you can do that even in story.
Yeah.
And if necessary, use words, right? But another great example of that would be C.S. Lewis. Look at the Narnia stories.
Mm-hmm.
Those are the kind of things that we want to do, is show them in a story, and you can do that quite often in a way that Christians who are attracted to the story or that come and see the film, they get it. They know. They understand the parallel to the Bible and the Bible message.
Right.
Actually, Francine Rivers in Redeeming Love is a great example of that in the book, because it's a period film that's set, in the mid-1800s, but it's a parallel, to Hosea. So there's a way to tell stories that can be acceptable to a wider audience. Christians know what the message is, and I think C.S. Lewis even said this, that it's the dog whistle,
Yeah.
Christians hear it. They know what's being said. Those that are non-believers enjoy the message, but it might help them seek a deeper meaning through the film itself or the book.
What about some things you don't want to see more of?
Probably one of the things I would go back to is to be very guarded about that message. That's what's important to us, is when we look at a script, when we look at a story that's being told, we want to make sure that it's rock solid.
Yeah.
That this is going to be something that's going to connect with the Christian audiences or be seeker-friendly. We're the gatekeepers for that. And so that's one of the things we do at WTA. We have a responsibility that content and that message is clear and it's coming across. And I think that there's a few cases where that's not quite so buttoned up and it's not told well. So we'd like to see less of that. The other thing, and I just touched on this earlier, is just the quality of the filmmaking.
Yeah.
We have a history of what, I don't even know a better way to say it, is that, outsiders might think it's a cheesy Christian film. But we don't want to be that.
Right.
We want to improve on the quality of the film, the quality of the filmmaking, and everything from wardrobe to acting is to deliver top quality content. And so we want to see less of that kind of film that just perpetuates, what people think of as Christian films, and improve the quality of what is going to be great content and great films that will reach Christian audiences.
Right. I think, at least through some of my conversations with other filmmakers and screenwriters, that there seems to be a genre around Christian film that has certain rules, and I think that genre has sort of sabotaged what Christian film could become. It's sort of shackling us to the past and to the old ways of doing things and the not so clever ways of doing things.
Yep.
And one of the reasons I started this podcast is to help filmmakers to start thinking about the fact that we have different stories to tell, and we need to be thinking outside of the box, even outside of the Hollywood box, the way they structure things, because we're telling very different stories with very different purposes. So we don't need to be aping Hollywood either.
Yeah, I have to agree with you. But there lies the challenge, right?
Yeah, it is.
Is we're looking for those great stories or great scripts, and in some cases, we one of the things that we've done is we've identified a great story, but we're also going to some of the top screenwriters, and where we can afford them, that's where the money is worthwhile. It's very expensive to make a great film, and it's easy for consumers outside to think, look at all the money that's being spent or brought in, or all the profits on it. But the way we see that is an investment in quality that's going to bring more people to theaters and touch them and reach them with a message that can change and affect their lives. And any of that profitability gets poured back into new and additional content. So a great example is finding top screenwriters that have done, even Academy Award-winning films to help us to bring those stories to life in a way that's not been done before.
Do you find that Christians who are working in Hollywood are more or less accessible to getting involved in Christian films?
that's actually been a big plus because they would love to see their craft, be expanded into quality films. So, a lot of times that's where we've built a great crew around a film, is getting some of that top talent who are believers, and they're very excited about bringing something to the screen that they can be proud of as well.
Oh, that's good. Because for my story, I mean, I've been in animation for 30 years and as a director, and for most of my career, I wanted nothing to do with anything Christian film because I didn't like what was being done.
That's right.
And I just thought, this is a deal breaker for my career. It would ruin my career if I got involved in this.
Right.
And so I think there's still some of that hesitation within the, the professional part of the industry. But I think that's probably changing now because of things we're seeing. And
yes.
I mean, I went into my first film kicking and screaming. I didn't want anything to do with it. It was my producer who wanted to do my first Christian film, and I didn't want to do it. But after I did it, I thought, you know what? This is all I ever want to do now.
Well, you see, that's been one of the things that I personally have. I know Bill Reeves, who's our president and CEO, we've both strived for that over the years. I've worked in, as has Bill Reeves, we've worked in the music industry on the Christian music side, book publishing for Christian publishers of big New York houses. We both did a stint with Big Idea in the VeggieTales animated series brand that now is under the DreamWorks and Universal umbrella. But in all of those things, in the music industry, and especially in the film industry, we're striving for quality, to deliver something at the level, and even VeggieTales was that.
Yeah.
VeggieTales was on the cutting edge of what was happening in home entertainment for CGI animated, properties.
Right.
And that's what got everybody's attention, early on. It was great quality and a great message. And we want to keep doing that at a much bigger level. I think it's funny to hear you say that about your own story, because it takes people willing to sacrifice and step up and to make that happen, to make the quality product that you can be proud of.
Right.
We've got some great days ahead. One of the things that's just about us, about WTA Group, is that we're in the process of it right now, is becoming a part of EMF, which is the Educational Media Foundation. This is the nonprofit organization that has K-Love and Air One radio networks.
Oh.
And we are in the acquisition process with them to be a part of that family.
Oh.
We'll continue to run separately, but we will help EMF expand into book publishing, film, TV, in reaching people beyond just radio listenership. So we're very, very excited about that. And Bill Reeves, who's our president, has now taken on the appointment to the role of CEO for EMF.
Oh, wow.
Not just the radio networks, but also WTA. So it's a very exciting time for us, and a lot of great things ahead with all their resources, and also helping us set up new investment funds. What would change is for EMF of not just being K-Love and Air One radio networks, which are phenomenal, a massive reach of 15 to 20 million listeners, but now to have a part in new media. And that can be, everything from TV broadcast to episodic to the kind of film projects that we've been doing for a few years, but even expand upon that.
Yeah.
So very bright days ahead, and we're excited about that.
That's fantastic. That's great news. thank you so much for giving me your ear and your voice and your passion. This is exciting to see what you guys are doing at WTA.
That's great. Thanks a lot. Appreciate it. It's fun to talk to you about this stuff. It's a passion, and we really want to deliver a great product for folks to watch for years and years ahead.
Brian Mitchell, thank you for being a guest on this podcast. We look forward to seeing what lies ahead for you and the WTA Group. Brett McCracken, one of the senior editors of the Gospel Coalition website, will be my guest in our next episode. Thank you for joining me on the Ministry of Motion Pictures podcast. You'll find show notes and more information about us and the WTA Group at ministryofmotionpictures.org.
What we do in life echoes in eternity.